I want to condense my thoughts about the base game, right, and DLC. I think that I mean, I've said this before while playing this. This is a game about dehumanization. It's a game about, like, well, not just that. It's a game that questions how we dehumanize characters in a video game. Not just like they're characters in a video game. Of course, they're not actually human, but you relate to different characters in different ways. And I think what this game did, or at least is trying to do, you could argue it didn't do it well, is trying to make you question how you relate to characters. At first, you start the game as a pitiable as like this pitiable small child, and you relate to her, or him, or them, sixth through the beginning of the game. You form like you get little hugs from the small creatures and from the gnomes, and you are with her, and how alien and fearful you feel in the ship. As the game progresses, though, I noticed there are camera angles and some switches that make you have to contend with the fact that in this world, you might not be the small one. You might be the same thing as the big creature. And I don't think it does this through storytelling per se, but it does it strictly through atmosphere and camera work. This game has really cool camera work, that is to be certain. Not just in the way that it sets up shots, like, that are well composed, but in the way it frames its characters and the size of its world. You get whiplash from the beginning of the game of being in the position of being this small character looking up at a world that is too big for it, that doesn't have space for it, to being a to more outwardly going camera angles where the character is small and you are big. And in doing this, it links it to the antagonists of the game, these like malformed like people. And it's uncomfortable to start comparing them to humans or people, because you have to either both say they're people and Six is a person, which is a hard thing to draw when they look so different and act so different at first and are presented in such different contexts. But it's a distinction that this game definitely wants you to make, wants you to question these characters' relationship to humanity. Because at the beginning, the antagonist is a distinctly far from human shape. It is easy to dehumanize him, and it's easy to rip his arms off like a bug. That is what he is there for. He is there to be easily dehumanized and cathartic to do so. Because that end scene where you fight him through the door, it is cathartic to finally defeat him after he's terrorized you for the first chapter of the game. But the next villains you don't get to have that catharsis for, and more uncomfortably, you have to kind of relate to them. They're inhuman, sure. They have like disgusting, overblown features, but honestly, it gets harder to do that as you see them, and they're placed as beasts, but their shapes, they're only as bestial as like a caricature of an overweight person is. And we could talk maybe about that being a little fat phobic, that a lens of dehumanization is applied to someone to overweight bodies. That's a harder thing to grapple with than the actual themes of the game is the implicit bias of what goes into that. But the last villain, the final boss, the woman, she is shaped like a person. She has very human proportion. You know, if you count skinny as human proportions, you could not count that out. Whatever. But the amount that it kind of scale, I think, what's the term? The curve of how humanized the enemies feel is matched by an inverse curve of how dehumanized the main character feels. Because near the end, she does the thing that you've been afraid of happening to her the whole game. She is offered food in friendship, in a stark parallel to being offered food in pity at the beginning from the young boy through the cafeteria wall. You eat one of the gnomes who you've been relating to and being on the same level as throughout the game, and that's tough pill to swallow, because right after that you are in an unmistakably human house with an unmistakably human character, and you hold up a mirror to them, and that mirror takes power away from them, takes power away from the antagonists, and gives it to you. And the result of that power is the inverse of what's been happening to the character this whole time. A consumption of their essence and a dehumanizing of them. And you've already had to contend with how humanized you want them to feel, and you don't really have as much choice as you would like in that matter. By the end, I think that the roles are reversed in a really interesting way. I was talking about Resident Evil 7 earlier, and I think a similar path is done in that game, but it's not about humanization, it's about power. Oh, we saw that stone in the tapestry. Anyway, in Resident Evil 7, start out as a weak, punked soy boy getting abused by this family that isn't his. You're put in the position of the youngest son at the lowest rung of the totem pole, and you work your way up, and as you do, the power of the enemies you're facing goes down. Jack is objectively more scary than Lucas or the woman is. Fuck, I forget her name. Misogyny moment. Forgetting women's names out here. But you kill him first. He's the one that you beat first. And in doing that, you start this like ascension of power where you stop being the one who's abused, and you start being the one who steps on these abusive enemies. And like you gain confidence throughout the game. You gain power and competentness. Competency? That's the word. But it makes you feel good. This game, it has the same arc. But do you feel good after that ending? Do you feel like a moral catharsis has been obtained? Because I don't. Walk around here? You can't. Alright. There's nobody here, but this was a good talk at the end of the stream.